We are starting with the last third panel related to fact-checking. As we have said, everybody with a smartphone has become a journalist, sort of say, today. Opinions and facts are mixed, very much consciously. Integrity of information is under a big question mark. So it's very important that informations are verified and accurate as much as possible. The title of our last panel is Truth Under Review, Impact and Perspectives of Fact-Checking in Times of Crisis. Our panelists are Isabella Wirth, researcher at Admo Hub from Agence France Presse. Nice to have you with us. Then Žana Erznožnik, researcher at Admo Hub from Slovenian media Ostro. Ana Brakus, executive director from Portal Faktograf. Josip Šipić from Portal Portal Libela, and representative of HAKOM, Mr. Domagoj Maričić. We will start with you, Isabella. AFP is a partner in this project, ADMO, or EDMO as well, but under the umbrella of EDMO, ADMO 1.0, from the viewpoint of a prominent global and multilingual news agency like AFP. What would you say, is a fact-checking a sort of new journalism, or is just a tool that we need increasingly a lot, and it comes aside with the core journalistic value-based characteristics like impartiality and objectivity?
Thanks a lot for this question, because it gives me the opportunity first to thank again our partners and our leader, University of Dubrovnik, for having put us in partnership with other fact-checking organizations, media literacy partners, and so. Why is it so important for a news agency like AFP? It's because it's one of our missions. One of our first missions is to describe worldwide facts in 6 languages, in text, in photos, with strict, standardized captions. So it's our job. So we do fact check from the start of our work, and it's true that when our news editors in chief had thought on creating same, I think we all did start the same time around after 2015. Some of us in the newsroom were thinking, is it our job to clean the internet? It's not our job. Our mission is to be underground and to describe what happens. Well, now we are fact-checking in 26 languages. Of course, working within in partnership with so far Meta third-party programs, and also we are part of 8 EDMO hubs. But what we see those days, the one who were skeptical are now the one who read in the newsroom, who read our fact checks, are sitting in the newsroom in offices beside fact checkers, and also learning from them. We saw the example during the European Union elections campaign. All the breaking news now are followed by disinformation or preceded by disinformation sometimes. So it's part of our job.
Do those people, do they feel, as you have said, it's not our job to clean the internet? Do they feel as journalists, or, in the brackets, of course, under quotations, cleaners? Or something in the middle, you know?
I hope they all feel as journalists, because they are. They are. Why? And it's really clear in our newsroom, because our standards, even I would say. When you start with EFP, maybe you would like to, I heard that from the other previous panel, that some candidates who wants to work for N1 dream about an ideal job as journalist only from Monday to Friday, etc., etc. It's the same situation with our agency, but when someone starts with EFP, it starts from the basic rules. The 5 W's, who is doing what and what happens where, and how could we describe it as neutral as possible. It's fact-checking. It's the same.
Ms. Erznožnik, I would refer to the same question. Is this a new sort of journalism or just a journalistic tool which is much more present? And my second question for you would be, as a fact-checker as well, how did we move from fact-checking to the public debate on censorship and freedom of speech? And when? What was the breaking point?
Okay. So to start with the first one, I believe that fact-checking is journalism in a similar way that television journalism is journalism. So it has its own, fact-checkers have specific skill sets. It is kind of its own genre and genre rules. But at the core, it's still about informing the public. It's still about free speech. And what Isabel has mentioned, it's basically about answering the 5 big questions. In Slovenian code of ethics of journalists, Slovenian journalists, like the first article speaks about how journalists have to verify every information that they publish. And this is basically what fact-checking is. So, yeah, to answer shortly, yes, it is journalism in my opinion. But on the other hand, I also understand that why some fact-checking organizations maybe want to distance themselves from regular journalism. Also, Ostro stems from that we realize that there are problems with traditional media, traditional journalism is endangered, and we want to be answer to that. And also, a lot of the times we fact-check regular mainstream media, and we find this information also in their work. So maybe that is why some organizations or people want to distance themselves from journalism. But I believe that we have to say that it is journalism, it is way of journalism, and in my opinion, it is, yeah.
Censorship or freedom of speech, this question, how we have ended up in that dark alley, or not dark alley?
I don't know how we ended up here.
Because this is a very often question that has been brought up to the table when it comes to fact-checking.
I mean, I think it all comes from lack of trust in institutions, in media, and in science and so on. How we ended up here, I think it was a long process, but I have to mention what has happened at the beginning of this year with Meta, where, as it was already mentioned, basically Meta's director, CEO, was spreading disinformation about fact-checkers, mixing what we do with censorship, which is a blatant lie. If you look at what Meta has published on their own website while describing their fact-checking program, they were clear that we are not deleting anything from Meta, from Facebook, Instagram, and that we are basically adding context, adding information for people who want to look at it, and then Meta or their algorithms or whatever delete some content.
But perhaps they're just following the discourse of Mr. Trump and the inner circle, and that was not the case 2 years ago with the same people quoting some different narratives now. Ms. Brakus, why do verified facts polarize the public so much if they are verified? And at the end of the day, we have verified facts, but they have smaller impact than viral disinformations that are spread out there? Is this like the court sentences, you know, that, or any kind of accusations that are followed by court sentences? If you say something about someone, it ends up on the front line of the newspapers, but then if there is some kind of a court verdict later that says this was disinformation or something that has offended without arguments, nobody cares when you publish that in the newspapers or wherever.
Hi everyone. Thank you for the invite. I don't think I can actually answer your question without answering the questions you posed to my colleagues here. So first of all, is fact-checking journalism is a little bit of a, I don't know, a site called PolitiFact won the Pulitzer in 2009, which is almost 20 years ago now, because I know time flies too fast for all of us, but it's almost 20 years from now. They won a Pulitzer for fact-checking over 700 claims of politicians, something, because the thing that was new wasn't the work, it was the presentation of the work. So the idea that fact-checking is something new, I think is very, it's a little bit silly. So the fact-checking as a methodology that is completely structured, the way it is presented, the way organizations that primarily focus on it, the way that they network, the way that they collaborate, the way that they verify each other, that is something that is new, because it was impossible to have the same tools that you used before when you bring in technology that completely disrupted the system in which we receive information and send information out there. That's one thing. The second thing, how did we end up in conversation about censorship, and why are we even talking about very large online platforms basically partnering up with media organizations to clean up their sites? So I think there are at least two reasons. One is because, first of all, we as a country, then we as a continent, and then I could say even globally, we have sadly took a long few steps back in publicly funding public service media. And if you want to do a good job, you have to operate in the media ecosystem that is around you. You can be utopian, you can be optimistic, you can believe in journalism however you want, but nobody wants to fund you to write things that are in the public interest. So you have to figure out ways how to do the job that you want to do. Factograph now has 19 people. Our site is structured in a way that the first part of our site is mostly focused on analysis, deep reporting, investigative stuff, and so on and so forth. All of that is funded by the work that we do through fact-checking. And not because we don't believe in fact-checking. It's because fact-checking has been the kind of the thing that our institutions or others have decided to try to invest in, because they didn't want to invest in public funding of media organizations. So that is very connected. So how does that relate to censorship? It relates to censorship because we have for years at Factograph and the European network of fact-checking and the international one, we have for years researched why there are coordinated harassment campaigns of fact-checkers globally. And the answer is pretty simple.
Hate speech.
Yes, hate speech, threats, violent threats, whatever. And it's very easy to understand that it's a coordinated campaign that is happening everywhere. Its first goal is to undermine trust in general, and then specifically in us. You see that, as you have said, with the new Trump administration coming in, setting the scene, and then Mark Zuckerberg, who a few months back literally testified in front of Congress saying fact-checking works, we believe in fact-checking, we want to support fact-checking. But Mark Zuckerberg is a CEO of a for-profit company, and if you want to rely on him to deliver good, verified information to people anywhere in the world, I think you're just a little bit crazy. It's an ad-selling business, period. now some AI, some of your personal information, So why don't people believe in stuff that we verify? I think there's a couple of different reasons. One is algorithms, and then algorithms, and then algorithms, because you get sucked into this system where it's impossible to come out of. The second one is almost, I would say now, decades of undermining journalism and media work in general to kind of cut that trust completely. And then with fact checkers specifically, you have this whole coordinated campaign around. But I also want to add that it's people believe things that are wrong because when they try and find something that is true, it's not out there. The biggest issue is the system that isn't providing them good information. And I don't think you can fight that with saying, oh, this is something that fact checkers should do.
Mr. Šipić, having in mind everything that goes on globally, in a global context with fact checkers, we have seen in the States they've given up because obviously of the political situation there and consequences of the old or new inhabitant of White House. Here in Europe still because of DSA, big tech companies are still having, some kind of fact-checking or, verified informations. Do you think that there are lists of professions in the future that would be futile or they will not exist? That we would have fact-checkers for 10 years as a kind of profession, something between journalism and something else, or new sort of journalism. Do you see yourself or your colleagues that are doing a job of fact-checking for 5 years to be in the newsrooms here in Croatia or in Europe?
I definitely see myself and my colleagues working the same job in the next 5, 10, 15 or 20 years. I mean, definitely in the next 5 years, because we have, the disinformation narratives that we are surrounded by, especially when they are related to certain social groups, this is a political thing, it's a political fabrication. And this is something that is invented and that has its goal. And disinformation campaigns are just one of the tools how to achieve these political goals. So basically, we are as fact checkers, and this will continue, evidently. It is on the rise, and it will be on the rise. And in another 5 years, we'll definitely
because nobody would expect it what happened. Of course, Trump might have been elected again in the States, but perhaps 2 years ago, when it comes to fact-checking, disinformation, and the whole situation in the public space in the States, perhaps 1 year ago, you would not expect what happens here. Who knows what might happen in Europe in that regard for a couple of years, In that regard, I have been posing that question. Would we be resilient enough as Europe, to fight against disinformation, including fact-checking still, or we might, with some tendencies that we are seeing in some of the EU countries, as well be shaken, and then, like the chain, including fact-checking, would be on a stake?
We won't be resilient in 5 years. It's a short term. I mean, we don't have enough time to for the entire Europe to be resilient. But also, I mean, yeah, we can have populist governments cutting fact checkers. But I mean, we have, in the current context, as Anna has said, we have the situation that there is a lack of funds for fact checkers. There is a lack of funds for quality journalism. Those funds that we have, we fight for those funds. So I mean, in 5 years, we can, in a year, us as fact checkers, we can just be shut down, So yeah, I don't know what's the answer to your question. I mean, there will be a need for fact checkers, but I don't know if there will be fact checkers.
Thank you. Mr. Maricic, HACOM is the national coordinator for digital services in the implementation of the EU's DSA. So what's the protocol or how the things are done after you receive a report of disinformation campaign? Do you wait somebody to make the procedure or to give the report to you, or you act proactively? How does that work?
Okay, thank you for the question. Before answering the question, I will tell you a short anecdote, and we can do a short fact-checking on the spot, because anecdotes concern Slovenia, and Slovenian colleague maybe can verify if it's true or not. So basically, when we were talking with our colleagues from Slovenian regulators, that they told us a story that apparently some right-wing party produced a cartoon explaining to public what is the DSA. And in this cartoon, it was Ursula von der Leyen who get annoyed with some article about her, and then she is calling a Slovenian regulator and asking them to put this article down. And this party explained to people, this is DSA, this is the new censorship. So did you hear about this cartoon?
Yeah, and it's a whole narrative actually in Slovenia. Right now there's a new media law proposal in the making in the parliament. It was for like 6 months almost now, and it was the same from the same party, the same narrative, and in that case, Ostra was the one who is going to be censorship. I don't know how they made the connection with the law proposal that didn't actually mention it. It would be in the hands of agency, not in the hands of fact checkers. And they said the same thing, that if someone would criticize, I don't know, Gibanje Svoboda or a specific politician or someone, that they would call us and we would censor it or something like that. So yeah, it's a whole narrative.
Thank you. So fact-checking was successful in this case.
But that was not fact-checking, because I don't have proofs in my hand, and if I had a phone, I could give you the links.
But the purpose of this anecdote was to say what DSA is not. So, contrary to Mr. Trump, DSA is not a new censorship tool. Actually, the main purpose of DSA is to combat illegal content, and
which does not include just disinformation as well, sexual content,
all kind of illegal content. And disinformation per se is not illegal content. It may amount to illegal content in certain cases, but per se is not illegal content. And this leads us to a role of digital service coordinator, which would not act upon reports of disinformation, because it is not its prerogative, and it is not idea to have a new censorship authority which would put down articles that contain some, or other media particles that contain some disinformation. So actually it will be left upon fact checkers to check and to mark this, and it would be upon to large platforms to abide to a code of conduct to prevent disinformation, and to enable to people who consume the content to decide whether this content is relative or not, and to enable fact checkers to mark this content. So,
sorry, isn't it trusted flaggers, not fact checkers, which is a pretty big difference?
Yeah.
No.
We'll come
I'm
to this.
talking.
What's the standard for trusted notifiers later?
I'm talking about fact checkers here,
okay,
and their role and their role via platforms, where platforms according to a code of conduct, platforms should enable people to see whether the article was authentic, truthful,
but
or
sorry,
not.
I'm a bit confused. Just if you are leaving this to the platforms, then to the fact checkers, what's then your responsibility as a coordinator? And you are not doing anything proactively, just to clarify.
Yeah, but because in a field of disinformation, it is not illegal content. So even for illegal content, there is no role of digital coordinator, because each kind of illegal content should be reported by a relevant authority or by a trusted flagger for this particular kind of content. For example, if it's child pornography, there would be a trusted flagger NGO who would mark.
And who decides who is trusted one? It's your standard.
Actually, yes. Actually, it would be our role to give a status to a trusted flagger according to their profile and to control their work. But we will not be the ones who will decide about content itself. It's very important to know that. And it's also very important to know that HACOM, as a coordinator, will not go into the content of any article, any social network content, and
because you are not equipped with competent people, or
because it's not in our mandate.
Okay.
Because it's not in our mandate. We can monitor how platforms are doing. For example, if Factograph and I see fact checkers more in the role of vetted researchers than in the role of trusted flaggers. And if we get signals from fact checkers that platforms are not doing well in Croatia, that they are not respecting their obligations regarding fact checking, obligations undertaken by the Code of Conduct, then we can act and tell the European Commission about it and tell the European Commission to start investigation about it.
Okay, then hard work is done by somebody else, but again, consequences are dealt with again with somebody else, European Commission, if I understood well.
Yes.
So your role is just to sit and watch, or. But what do you think about this model in France, or what's perhaps the model Europe-wise? Those kind of coordinators, do they do much more proactively work? From your experience, because you as AFP have been engaged in many countries when it comes to DSA as well.
Well, I think it's a very hard question to answer. It's maybe too early, because this system has just started, and what we can easily imagine is that the situation in Croatia, in France, in Germany, in Hungary, for instance, will be slightly different eventually. So when you see that in some countries there are now, like in Hungary, like official or pro-governmental fact-checking organization. What is fact-checking? What is a trust flagger in countries where that could be eventually politically used? I'm not judging. I'm just describing the reality. And frankly, I'm not able to tell you what will happen in France if we change the ruling party changes in a few years. So it's difficult for me to answer this question. Really, what I think is I take this occasion also, this question, to just say that in the previous panels, which I found very interesting, I miss only one word: transparency. And maybe the work, what we are creating since a few years via the EDMO hubs, via the EFCSN networks, IFCN more globally, and via our communication with the local or nationwide regulators, it's about transparency, because it's the first time that we honestly speak and try to define the words. What is a fact checker, etc., etc. And I think it's a positive start, at least.
Just to use the opportunity while you are still having the mic, I wanted to ask you from as well the French perspective, but as well from the perspective of huge media entities as AFP. fact-checking in times of war, or war fact-checking, because we are witnessing so many conflicts these days. We have war in Ukraine, we have situation, the last one in Gaza Strip. That includes the ground journalistic work, of course, but as well digital investigations, which means as well journalists skilled in open source intelligences, which encompasses fact-checking. What's your experience or advice in that regard?
So I have no personal experience, but I can see from my colleagues, for instance, the teams were at the start of the Russian invasion to Ukraine, for instance, they were able to do an in-depth investigation about what happened in Bucha. Why? Because it was the very first time we had this situation within the agency where the colleagues monitoring online disinformation ongoing, like with the Russian narrative that all the bodies were actors and it was all staged. They were, because it's about proving and collecting evidences. So the evidences were collected by the journalists covering in the ground. So it's again answering maybe your first question. This is pure journalism, and this is important that there are more cooperation between experts about the online claims and viral claims, which, by the way, can be very harmful. In France, for instance, I remind that teacher. We were talking about teachers earlier. A teacher has been killed because of fake news. So I mean, it's real. It's in real world. Something happening. So this connection between what happens in the ground and during conflict is important to have this communication with the fact checkers.
Mr. Znožnik, in what way fact checkers, perhaps from Slovenian point of view, should be strengthened much more? In what way to invest into the fact checkers as well, perhaps mainstream media, and how they act in that regard? Because it would be expected much more from mainstream media to invest and to help fact checkers perhaps than some alternative news. And how much do you use AI in your work these days?
So how to help with transparent and public funding, that is one thing. And the other is what we would really like to not be relying only on funds, on projects, because with projects comes reporting, comes deliverables, and sometimes something in reality happens and you have to cover it, you want to cover it. It's journalism. But if you have too many projects, it's hard because you also have to deliver what you promised in the project, you know. So there should be more funding for like so-called core funding, which is just for doing journalism and not for specific projects. And in that regard, we want to, and we are working on it, to be like basically crowdfunded, so that people pay some kind of memberships, or they support when they can. So support journalism when they can. If it's €1, if it's €5, if they liked a specific piece, they give us €30, something like that. And this is like in Slovenia specifically. I think it's similar in some other countries. This is not the case yet. People are used to getting all the information for free on the internet from influencers, from for-profit media, and they feel like, why would I pay for something if I can find the information for free? So for that to happen, I think there has to be an understanding of like different types of information, of quality media, of independent media, of why we don't fund ourselves using ads and so on. So yeah, This is for the first question, and the second was about the mainstream media, right?
No, AI.
AI. No, you already you also mentioned the mainstream media. How we are like connecting or whatever. We are actually in a project with other independent Slovenian media right now, and we are trying to make a strong coalition. And like people to make people understand what we are doing, but for the mainstream media, we don't have a lot of good connections sometimes, and probably it's because we fact check also what they do, and we show fingers when they do something wrong. So this is probably why they don't like to republish our findings and so on. But we've had some really great collaborations also with mainstream media.
Let's leave this AI question for later. Ms. Brakus, it was super electoral year last year in Croatia. When it comes to disinformation that have been exposed or fact-checked by your side, related to which elections or pre-elections campaign you had the most work to do, and some of the case studies that you would like to pinpoint which prove how much you are needed for the resilience of the political processes and democracies?
Okay, let's start with, so we had European elections, we had presidential elections, parliamentary elections, now local elections. Each one of them has their own little specificities that are sort of interesting. The European one was, for us as a fact-checking organization, really interesting because we worked with multiple organizations that are members of the European Fact-Checking Standards Network. We tried to figure out what was happening in other member states and then kind of spreading around so we could kind of have a collective effort on kind of tackling the disinformation narratives that were popping up. The parliamentary elections seem really, really far away, but they were actually quite close to the European ones. So it was a complete mix of everything for us specifically in Croatia. I think the European subjects were sort of drowned in questions of local politics.
Overshadowed, yeah.
Yes, so basically what we ended up doing is dealing with our specific issues more than some broader European stories, which of course wasn't the case in countries, in member states that didn't have parliamentary elections around the same time. The presidential elections were pretty interesting, I think mostly because of the candidates and that little attempt of questioning what the constitution stands for and who can be a candidate and who cannot, and who is running a party and who is running a country.
A Russian agent, or?
No, the case of our current president, Milanovic, trying to decide whether, everything was very strange. But that report that came out from the Center for Information Resilience or something, it was rather interesting, but nothing sort of crazy. I think the most interesting thing that happened are actually things that didn't happen. I think there was a lot of talk around AI and deep fakes and expecting this and expecting that. But that really isn't needed so much in Croatia right now, when you have local media that's been completely captured, when you have mainstream media that basically lives out of ads from the government, from EU projects or organizing conferences. It's kind of easier to spread the narrative you want without investing so much in technology. Maybe you need that someplace else, but here kind of the same old is happening. The only new really interesting thing that we noticed is how much TikTok has become a player in political campaigns here. It wasn't the case ever before this year. Now the number of users is extreme. The number of different, especially political narratives, is also extreme. And what is really, really interesting, they're mostly focusing on very local stuff. So we do see a bunch of, evergreen conspiracy theories, but the kind of the localization of the content and those attacks being very, very, very individualized, it's something that is I think really new. Disinformation on Meta has been happening since forever, on YouTube as well, on fringe media that gets funded through Google Ads since forever. But I think this TikTok thing happening right here in Croatia right now is a new thing. And I guess I should say that we recently started working with them just for kind of, transparency reasons.
Mr. Šipić, how much you use or you expect and when to use much more AI in disclosing perhaps in fact-checking and disclosing disinformations? Now we have heard deepfake. Perhaps it's not so much present if it's not needed still in pre-election campaign here in Croatia. Are we lagging behind, which is good in that regard, or bad, or then we could be just overflooded in the next elections with so much deepfake? What is easier to accept, like, when you eat all of a sudden lots of food, deepfake to act and to appear step by step, or if we are flooded right away, do you think that we would know how to act and to defend ourselves even with your fact-checking if next elections would be much more deepfake and then AI needed? Are your colleagues educated as well to deal with AI in dealing with fact-checking?
I would definitely agree with Anna. I think that I should explain that we come from Libella, and Libella is a specialized portal on the issues of gender equality. So we expected to have deep fakes because it's a thing to do when you want to silence women, female politicians. But we didn't have that much of a use of deep fake as we expected here in Croatia. We had a couple of cases. So I expect that it will be developed more in the future when it comes to that, and we'll definitely try to follow, to try to be educated as much as we can and to have, all of the skills to follow that. But when it comes to our work, what we saw in the super election year, and when it comes to gender, is the use of disinformation narratives by politicians. That's what we were following. So it's not a matter only of platforms, of social networks. It's a matter of politicians saying or delivering disinformation or disinformation narratives in the mainstream media, and this is something that should be kept in mind. So we, in our work, we identified in all 4 election campaigns more or less the same narratives. The narrative of gender ideology as a threat to the society, the narrative of women who are not, especially politicians, who are not adequate enough to take political positions.
Capable, yeah.
Yeah, the narrative of migrant men endangering local women, and the narrative of gender equality policies as ineffective or as something that will that is here to serve for the distribution of gender ideology. So basically these 4 narratives, and these were more or less delivered by politicians.
And what is your assessment? What kind of impact did they have, if especially they have been widespread in the mainstream media?
I didn't do that kind of analysis, but it's quite worrying that we had, and this is an example of their success, that we had in the electoral debate a question posed by a journalist on the national television, I think, what is your opinion about gender ideology? That's a success.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Success for those kind of policies or informations that have been put out, especially if it's the case in mainstream media and HRT as a national public broadcaster.
That's a normalization or mainstreamization of disinformation narrative. Mm-hmm. Basically, that's it.
Mr. Maricic, just coming back to this, who is a trusted notifier or how you call it? Flagger, yeah. Could you just clarify a bit? For instance, here there are representatives of Gong, and as I know, Gong has made for some fake profiles as well of HD youth at a certain point of time complained. So, I mean, just one of the examples. So, in what way you define? Would there be clarified and standardized standards? Who becomes a trusted organization that makes the complaint?
Trusted flagger can become every organization which has record in a certain field regarding certain illegal content.
What does that mean? They need to be present 5, 10, 15 years in a public space, or have to report, or
it will be broadly defined because at this moment it's impossible to set out exact standards. But in any case, Gong would qualify as a relevant NGO in a field of elections, and for any kind of illegal content that tackles election. Gong, if it wishes so, can become a trusted flagger. But it must be related to illegal content. I will reply once more, illegal content.
Do you think in general that EU has started, you are a national coordinator for that kind of content, that EU has started a bit too late to regulate the internet, that all of us lived in a very romantic perception, of understanding of power of the internet and its role as well as social networks?
It depends on perspective in which we are looking at the regulation. I mean, EU is blamed for everything. EU is blamed for over-regulating, for not regulating enough, for regulating too late. So,
but that's a democracy, you know.
In the case of DSA, which is not regulation of internet as such, internet is much broader term. I think that the reaction was appropriate and timely. And DSA is a powerful instrument, but we have to understand that it has its limits. So I think, and the power of DSA can be seen from the reactions of those who are much concerned with DSA. These are big platforms, and from the reaction of, let's say, spokesperson of these big platforms, which are now talking, who is now talking even about banning entering USA to all those who are dealing with DSA.
Before going for Q&As, I would like to use the opportunity again that you are coming from this huge media entity with really leverage worldwide. Coming back to your perspective about two things. Public debate on censorship or freedom of speech, and second, AI as a tool in doing your everyday work.
If you don't mind, I will start with the second question because it could go to or lead to the conclusion about the wider question about AI. I can tell you that we were we were worrying within the fact-checking service, but also the whole newsroom, the fact that despite we were trying to build on our own AI-based system to try to fact-check or to check, verify deepfakes and so. There is no ideal solution so far, so we continue trying to develop such tools. But in the parallel, and this is something that could eventually serve the public debate and the better, or maybe an optimistic way of seeing the future, is that we will try to certify our own content. For instance, we have started a project with C2PA solution, and it could have been JPEG Trust also. This is a competitor. But so there are many solutions to when it's about photos and videos, to flag our content taken with a real camera by a real photographer.
But what does it mean, real camera? And these days you have festivals of documentary movies that are taken by mobile phones, you know, and this is a real camera.
This is also part of the system. Then this to certify a content that has been at all Gen AI manipulated or something like that, not edited, nothing. The raw material is certified, and then the problem is watermarking. Even if it's transparent, it's erased, it's removed from the platforms. You know that with your Instagram account, you are unable to, if you download your own photos, you cannot find the date or the location you have taken them. So certifying our own content and also storing it in a storage, like in a bank or something, like developed by a company Imatag. An invisible tag which enable the user seeing a photo, like a crazy photo of Zelensky doing whatever. Is it an AFP photo? Then we can conduct a reverse search via our plugin. It's a technical, it's a bit difficult to explain, but it shows that we must protect qualitative content. It's not enough to fact-check a viral post or to flag misinformation or disinformation or just to correct mistakes, because we have not to say that, but journalists are humans and do mistakes. When we see that AI chatbots can hallucinate, so we are also only humans, so we do mistakes, we correct them, so we must protect the qualitative, the quality of the content. So the content being
done,
authentic and from good standards, so to say. And I hope that it will be enough, parallelly to media literacy and continuing meeting with people and talking like we are doing here about our work. I think it will be a freedom of speech, freedom of expression. It will be serving the public debate. I think so.
Thank you very much for sharing French and AFP experience. Any questions, perhaps, from the public? Oh, two of them. So, enough time just for two questions. Please, if you could just pass mic to the lady, of course.
Thank you. My question goes to you, Anna, and to you, Isabel. I would like to hear, I guess we would all like to hear, what is your opinion about NewsGuard and the work of Mrs. Brill and Horowitz, of course, the role of the company which sort of certifies the core quality. We were talking about core funding, good journalism, the real journalism. So the core quality of the media outlets. What do you think about that? What would be, in your opinion, what would be their role? They're also fact checkers, but they're also sort of the certifier of the good standards of transparent, good journalism, transparency of ownership, etc., etc., etc.
I think it's every opportunity to have a platform where media outlets can. It's the first time in the press history. I mean, I work for one of the oldest news agencies. The first time that we are so transparent, and it's good. Of course, we cannot promise that this organization could be at some stage becoming I don't know, counterproductive or something like that. But I think every initiative in that sense is good. I did mention earlier the EFCSN, the IFCN, all these organizations so far are important. And also that every media outlet regarding AI would mention the usage of the AI, having standards, own standards, and charters published, publicly accessible. It's important.
Yeah, so I think from what I know about NewsGuard, the basic idea is whitelisting so that mostly companies can understand what is happening on specific sites. It does go into media a little bit, but I think NewsGuard is mostly used by companies that want to understand where their ad money actually goes to. That's how I understand it. I might be wrong. I don't know when was the last time I read something on NewsGuard. But the whole idea of sort of whitelisting and saying this is a set of criteria that we are looking at, and this is what we think this specific website is or is not, is sort of, I don't know how to put it otherwise. It's their right to free speech. What happens next, how you use their work, is up to you. I wouldn't personally want to rely on, if I was, I don't know, a country or a ministry or something, on just one site. I would want to try and understand who is funding it, who is behind it, what exactly is the kind of methodology, criteria behind it. But you have various different certifications. Yeah, for example, one of the newest ones that's been here for a couple of years, it's called the Journalism Trust Initiative. It doesn't go into content at all. It goes solely into finances, structure, and kind of the editorial aspects, solely in the processes and paperwork that you have. So, for example, Faktograf is, I think, the first one in the region to get the full JTI certification. We decided to do that because we think it is probably going to be used by the Commission or somebody else for something in the future. I don't think NewsGuard is going to get that opportunity in Europe, at least. So,
thank you. And we have time for the last question. Professor Brautovic.
Thank you. I just want to add something that Domago was mentioning regarding trusted flaggers and DSA. So you have to understand that DSA is not perfect, but it's a leading regulatory framework in the world right now. So that's the best that we have. And of course, it takes some time to apply that. And it's not just a question of Croatia and HACOM, it's a question of all the regulatory agencies on EU level. We don't have enough capacity in sense of people and other things. So that's another fact. Regarding trusted flaggers, what I know, up to this moment, there are only 2 countries who actually appointed trusted flaggers. I think Germany and Finland. And this is a process because it's also the question if civil or NGO organizations will apply and to be trusted flaggers. You know,
we won't.
I know. That's why I'm mentioning that. You know, Faktograf, Gong, I'm pretty sure it's, you know, because you get in position that you are perceived by the public as a censor. And that's a big issue. Okay. Yeah. So it's not on the government to make that kind of decisions. Civil sector is not willing to do so. Academia also. So I don't know who wants to do that kind of work. Thank you.
It's a dead race. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you for being patient enough or interested enough for all 3 panels. I hope that this sort of inventory for what has been done in the last 2.5 years within ADMA project was interesting for you, aspirational perhaps in one way or the other. Now I invite you to lunch and further networking, and for all those that are interested, there's going to be a guided tour within Experience Europe Center, tour of EU multimedia information space here. Thank you one more time and have a nice day.